Welcome. Welcome to Why Don't You Get a Life? It's another one. I don't remember what number this is. We are on number something, 27 or 28. Who knows? Crew? 28. Thanks, Terry. It is 28. Why don't you get a life? So I'm going to ask the crew, the usual dudes. Neil, I'll start with you. What does Why Don't You Get a Life mean to you?
I tend to believe that it's around the practices that we're starting to do now rather than what we did before. So how COVID affected us is what I'm interested in to see, and what we're doing differently in hours wise as we move through, to be honest.
Nice. Yeah, what we're doing hours wise. Yeah, brilliant. Sammy, your thoughts?
My initial thoughts are all about being unique and finding your own goals in life. That's what Get a Life means to me.
Yeah, thanks, Sammy. Brilliant. Terry, your thoughts?
For me, it is one word, and that word is control.
Oh, nice word.
Control, yeah.
Oh, nice one. Thank you. Uncle Kev.
For me, it's about a balance, and the balance between what we work and our life that we have as well outside of work. So trying to have a work-life balance, which is really, really hard, but also trying to do some of the other stuff as well within that. So one of the things is like exercise as an example. Yeah. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, so it's all the bigger picture. Yeah, I think, the Get a Life is really, and I think that at the moment we've got the COVID pandemic going on, and I think people are really taking a look at what life is. A lot of us are having another look, an inner look, and we're realizing that we're all working too much, especially those people who've been unfortunate to have family members lost, colleagues. We've already lost a few colleagues to the pandemic as well. And I think it really does make you take a step back and have a look at getting your own life and getting in, like as Terry says, get a control. And it's all about really looking for the benefits of it. Excellent. Who's got an opener then, so that we can start this? I know Sammy's got some. I'm sure Kev's got some. And Terry's just mischief. Neil will have some as well. Who's first? Raise a subject. Brilliant. Neil, thank you.
Okay, so my question after listening to the crew is, how do we get that control back now then?
Nice question. How do we get the control back? We've got a Terry. Go for it, Terry, and then a Sammy.
Well, young Neil, in answer to your question, discipline is the word I'm going to put out there. Discipline to say no, discipline to say yes, discipline to remember why you want control.
Yeah,
I'm done. That's it.
I'd like you to say discipline, controlling what are you thinking? Because it's obviously you've got a something in your head. And I just wondered, because I know when you said, when I combine what you and Neil said, I know what it made me think about. I'm just interested.
Well, can I give you an example?
Yes, please.
We've got a local WhatsApp group around here, and during the pandemic, one ADI decided they're not going to do the job anymore, and they didn't know what they were going to do. They just weren't going to do the job anymore, and they listed all the things that they were going to get relief from. So they said, right, no more weekends, no more evenings, no more early mornings, no more calls, no more putting up with people on the road. Those must have been about 12 or 15 things they listed about what they were going to, the reason they were giving up. And every single one I was reading, I was saying, but you've got a choice. there. You choose that. You've got a choice to stop that. You've got a choice to do that. You've got a choice. You don't have to work weekends. You don't have to work evenings. You don't have to start at 7. And that's the discipline. You know, too many instructors, and it might not be by choice, might be by need, but far too many instructors let the business run them rather than them running the business. And then the choice isn't there. The discipline isn't there.
So, in another word,
You mean I could spill that in one word?
No, I was going to offer you another word. Is it setting boundaries? So if somebody doesn't want to work weekends, they set their own personal boundary, but also set boundaries for clients, customers, whoever.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like Kev said, balance. My customers know that if they text me at 8:30, they're not going to get a reply in the morning, in the evening, sorry, or in the morning. You know, anything after 7 o'clock, it's unlikely I'm going to reply. Anything before 9 in the morning, it's unlikely I'm going to reply. This is important, and they know that. So I don't get texts at 12:30 at night. And it's setting those boundaries and having the discipline and run your own business. Don't let the business run you.
Yeah. So that's just one example, and I think there are so many. What you're saying is there are so many examples, and that is the working weekends thing, and the don't text me, and I'm not going to reply. And there's nothing wrong with saying you avoid it. I think people who are tech-minded can actually set defaults on their phones, so you can have a list of pupil kind of contacts, and you can just it will bounce back. You won't actually get it until your curfew hours are over, I believe so.
Okay, I beg. Okay, didn't know that. I'll look into that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Terry. I don't think we've actually gone into that in as much detail as we can do, but I'm conscious that Sammy and then Phil had something to say. Sammy?
Yeah, I was just going to answer Neil's question in a slightly different way. How do we get control back? So for me, before the lockdown started, I was out of control in that I was burning out with the amount of things I was doing. And so it gave me time to reflect and to be self-aware of how I felt about the people I was with, how I felt about the things that I was doing, what made me happy, what made me unhappy. And it's about saying no to the things that you want to say no to, but not feeling afraid to say yes to the things you want. And that's what I got out of that time that we were in lockdown, just to be able to spend that time really, really reflecting on my life and what I wanted, and meditating and being spiritually aware of myself and everything around me. So for me, Get a Life is being able to assess, reflect, assess, be aware of your feelings, how things make you feel, how people make you feel. And if they make you feel crappy, then they're not the right people to be around. If they make you feel happy, like you guys do, then they're the right people to be around.
Absolutely, totally agree. And I think this is the time where because of the break, as in the interruption to our normal routines, this is the time to get a life. It is. So you're absolutely spot on. This is the time, even if you haven't started, even if you're getting back into the habits of your old habits, this is the time to really take a step back. No, take a step back, do a Sammy. Yeah, nice one. Thanks, Sammy. Phil, about half an hour ago, you put your little hand up.
Yeah, really, I suppose, sort of reinforcing what everybody else has said. For me, when we went into lockdown, I just stopped work completely. And I've had 2 or 3 months where I now coming out of it, I started with a completely blank diary sheet. And like Sammy, I've looked at what's important to me, what I feel I need for my health, for my well-being, and I'm fitting that into my diary, not making myself fit around my diary. I'm actually creating the diary to suit what I want and how I want to feel. So, like you say, coming out of lockdown now is a time we really can take control. And I think everybody needs to look and think about what they were doing, what's important, and just go forward from now. But be firm, got to be firm with yourself that you don't start sneaking things back in. I think that's important. Okay,
the discipline that Terry was talking about. I agree. Just as a thought, you just reminded me of how much of a walkover I was when I first started back in the day. I used to, at the end of the lesson, when you start to book the next session, I used to open my diary and say, when would you like your next session? I didn't have the foresight to say that would be convenient for me and offer that date or offer a couple of dates. So I was working all sorts of times. Some people would say, can you come at 8 o'clock for a 2-hour lesson? And at the time that was a 45-minute drive for me. What a mug. So I didn't have the skills that you guys have. I didn't have it, and that conviction to trust my instincts and look after myself. I didn't have a life. I really didn't. I had work. That wasn't, it's that work to live or live to work thing that people do talk about. Thanks, Phil. Steve, did you have any thoughts about the question that Neil was, or only because you haven't said anything? I've missed you, Steve. I need to hear your words of wisdom.
I think you and Kev both know that this, at the beginning, especially when we was doing the BTEC, it wasn't really a strong point of mine, striking this balance. Never was. And if anything, as awful as the whole COVID thing was, and still is, it gave me the excuse I needed to actually have a word with myself, really, and just say, you need to sort this. And I think, as Sammy said, taking that time and having that time to really reflect on the fact that, hang on, I don't want to be at work until 9 o'clock every night. The idea when I started doing this job was for me to choose my hours and do what I wanted to do. And it didn't happen. So it was a really good excuse for me to do that. And I've waved goodbye to about 3 or 4 pupils because I couldn't do it. I tried my best to sort of like refit them in, but in the end, but that was the hard bit. Like you said, is being not so much a pushover, I think, and especially when you're a relatively new business and you start to get recommendations, the recommendations especially are the ones you don't want to say no to, because that's that kind of ongoing thing. So you say, okay, I'll just slot you in here with the intention of moving you. Then you put somebody else there, then that doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden your day just expands. But yeah, I've gone from barely having 1 day off to having 2 days off a week. And I've just made sure that I do it.
Yeah.
It's as Terry said, it is discipline. You've just got to say, sorry, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a workaround? And it is. I mean, it's the apology. It is that discipline. It is hard. Ian's joying with the recommendation thing now. I think you've had a few joyful bits of feedback, and I'm glad you're sharing it on Facebook, Ian, because it's really nice to see. It's really good. It's really nice to see it. Thank you, Steve. Kev, you haven't spoken for ages.
Yeah, no, I just think it's really nice. I like people have said you've been given the options, to step back and just reevaluate what's actually happening during these last few months. I mean, obviously some people have found it harder than others, and that's unfortunate. But it's given a lot of people time to reflect on what they want and what they want going forward. But then it comes like problems happen, don't they? Where money issues and you need certain money now. So you are restricted in what you can and can't do to a certain extent. But there's lots of things that you can do that don't cost any money. And it's quite interesting how a lot of people are, got this because I need this, and well, sometimes just step back and just think about what you can do that don't cost you any money, because it's quite interesting looking at it from that point of view as well. And just making small changes sometimes can be just as good, because then they'll just become bigger changes in the long term.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Keith's dropping out a little bit there. Thank you, Kev. There's one really simple thing that people can do. There is a wonderful resource out there, funnily enough, that is free. There are 27 pre-existing webinars that could be a really good refresher. We've been looking at a little bit, I know Neil's been reminding us of some of the things that have come out of the webinars, and you know, it's just, there have been so many now of the free to view webinars, the blue light ones, and the you know, there's some that are my favorites, like why don't you play games, more games, I think it was. But we need to address where those things are, and when you look at those, I think there's plenty of information within some of those webinars where people do find things that they can do, just as you're saying, Kev. Have you got any more examples of what you can do? That's the...
Do you know one really, really simple one that came to mind, you know, that I started doing, which I wasn't doing before, is sleeping more. It's a lot of people don't actually sleep well, and that really affects what you do and how you react during the day. If you just sleep better, you know, getting some tasks done before you go to bed, so that you can just wake up in the morning and things are done. You know, that's one of the things that I've noticed that I do, and it enables me to have that nice night's sleep, and then you wake up in the morning ready to go again. It's a little tip. There's lots I can give you, but yeah, that's the one I would say.
So good night's sleep and not overworking. I don't know, do you guys find that when you're not overworked and overwhelmed, do you find the quality of each individual session just goes up? I found that when I'm and all I'm thinking about is how many and who is next, and who, oh, I've got four more hour sessions, and it's already whatever o'clock. Whatever I was doing back then, the quality just goes to zero. Sometimes, thank you, Sammy, sometimes when I've got a colleague who is an ADI, she happens, anyway, I won't say her name, but she's just discovered that she's a little bit sensitive to caffeine in the evening. And having caffeinated drinks is really, it's affecting her sleep. As soon as she just cuts it out after, I think, 6 o'clock, just the caffeine can make such a difference. So when people do investigate the reasons why people don't sleep. So I totally agree with what you're saying, Kev. Look at what you're doing, but also look at when you do work that little bit less and you have a life, what happens to the standard of your sessions. And then who was it talking about recommendations? I can't remember now. Who was talking? Oh, Steve. Steve was talking about the recommendations that we all have. When the quality is there, people just naturally refer you. You don't even have to put any effort into it. Was there someone who put their hand up before? Sammy. It was Sammy. I've got you, Keith, afterwards, and then Terry.
What you were saying, Fiona, about you know, counting the hours away. I was finding when I first went back that I was doing that, and it was because of the masks. So tiring. So I decided to get a life and split my time so that I could have those breathing breaks in between. So that's something that I've learned since then as well, about those limitations. But one thing that I did in down as well, I think I just touched on it before, was the meditation and the mindfulness, because there was so much negativity on the news and everywhere. And I decided that I didn't want to kind of pollute my brain with that. So I just had lots of walks, lots of breathing meditations, lots of walk-through meditations, you know, guided meditations. And it really does to help clear the mind if it's cluttered. You know, so that was one good thing that I did in lockdown. I've become a different person because of it. I feel clean, spiritually.
Yeah.
You know, and that enables you to go out and do what you want to do and say yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what you
Yeah.
say, Sammy, because there are some people out there that would be going "Phew, mindfulness, wishy-washy, whatever. I'm totally, you know, I agree with you 100%. I think mindfulness can be one of those things that's misunderstood. Mindfulness can be that mind-numbing something where you just focus on something else. So it could be if you get fixated on the cricket match, for example, or if you get fixated on a computer game. Mindfulness can be just really where you just focus on something else so much, your brain goes into alpha waves. I believe it's alpha waves.
Yeah.
It just changes what you're doing. So you can do the mindfulness thing, which for some people would be uncomfortable. You know how relaxed they feel when they do their hobby, play music or whatever it is, where they're only focused on the one thing, and it just gives your brain such a rest from all the humdrum have to do's, must do's, schedules and whatever it is. Thank you, Sammy. Good point.
But isn't that what we do with students anyway? We allow them to focus on one thing and get rid of all the clutter.
Some of us do, absolutely, Sammy.
Yeah.
Some of us do. Some people are just bombarding. I think it depends. Some people like the bombarding when they're on the session, but you know, some people choose to take a step back. Variety, it's what people want, what drivers want, and it's what we need to offer. Variety. Keith, you put your hand up, then I'm going to Terry because we'll find out what the score is. Oh, you've remuted, Keith, just so you know. You clicked it twice.
Right. I was just going to say, again, what everyone else is saying, I came back into this business part-time. And it's the great thing about being part-time is if I finish a bit late, it doesn't matter. I haven't got to rush to that next person. When I did it, when I first started 30 odd years ago, like a cattle market, literally one in, one out, one in, one out, check the time. Now, I don't care. I go in, do the hour. It takes 15 minutes more. It takes 15 minutes more. If there's a situation with one of the students that are having trouble, I've got that time to give them that little bit more so they can get it right, so they can go away happy rather than thinking, oh, I've made a right mess of it. So, yeah, I'm glad I've come back into it part-time now. And I'm doing less on the ambulance as well. I've even decided to cut right back on that as well now. So, I'm getting old.
So you've got your own life already. So you're a shining example to the rest of us. So you've got your life. You even know you've got the discipline and cutting back on both. Yeah, really good example. Thanks, Keith. I think what I liked was, you know, where you said if it runs over a little bit. I have been like that. I'm like you. I'm a bit too relaxed, probably. It's an hour-ish. It's never
does it?
Never. I can't do that. But,
and the pupils like it as well because they've got the holes in the fish dead on time. They're looking at their watches because they paid the money. You know, we go over. Doesn't matter. It's great.
Yeah, totally agree. All for that safe learning environment, that relaxed learning environment. Thank you, Keith. I have seen you, Phil, but we need to know what the score is from Terry.
Don't know what you're talking about, Fiona. It stumps end of the day, 94 for 4. I mean, what? I don't know what you're talking about. The golf's on. Just saying. I got a comment, if that's all right. I'm going to play Devils. All right. Obviously, I get it that some people haven't got a choice; they have to work because of living expenses. I get that. But those of us that are saying, well, you know, let's make a choice, let's be disciplined, are we just being lazy? And over to you.
Kev, you laughed. Now that means you have to speak.
I think I'm going to phrase it in my way. I'll give you two examples. Which one would you choose? And which person has the better life? There you go. So I could choose to work 40 hours and earn X amount of money. I could choose to work 30 hours and earn the same money. Who has the better quality of life?
Yep, it's true.
And I think it's very individual. There's some people that feel that they can't charge more for the lesson. That is totally fine. I get that. And you are all individual, and everyone again has a choice in how much they charge for lessons. But my stance is on that, I suppose, is I'm charging what I believe I need to earn my standard of life of what I want. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. So yes, we have the choices, but at the same time, what are you actually aiming for is what I would say. I know I've had conversations here before, but are you moving away from something or are you gaining something? So there's two ways of looking at things, I think. What are you motivated by?
It's all in the details, Kev.
It's all in the details, Fiona. It's all in the details. If you haven't got the details, you don't know what's going on. Causes panic.
Thank you, Kev. I think that's just like to point out some people will be frustrated. Some ADIs will be frustrated because they're currently in franchises, and of course they are limited in some ways. I think trust your instincts. If you feel like you can manage on your own and go independent, please try it. I didn't go independent for donkey's years. I was reluctant to take the leap. As soon as I did, I'd just say what everyone else said. Wow, what a difference, what a relief. And the business does take care of itself. You can always go back to the franchise if you should need to. So it's a thought. Phil, I know you said something ages ago and we've kind of changed the subject, but please say what you were going to say. Just drag us back to where you were.
It's not really dragging back. Starting back with what Keith said about the extra 15 minutes at the end of the day, you know, he's got the time to do that. So I was going to say was that I think really looking at it now, it's important we don't overload our day. You know, you were saying about doing loads of 1 hour sessions. And Sammy was saying about getting tired working with the mask and so on and working in these breaks. So it's really important that now that we don't overload our day and put ourselves in a position where we're getting tired. And that links really to what Kev was saying about the prices we charge. We want to charge money that gives us a realistic, good lifestyle. So those two things link quite nicely together, I think. Just don't overload the day. And then if you do run over a bit, we're not stressing, thinking about we've got to rush to the next one or we're going to be running late. Just build your day, you know, make it a nice, easy time for yourself. And no, it's not being lazy, really. It's just making your own life easier, I think.
Totally agree, Phil. Yes, just making your own life easier. Going to ask you guys in a minute, what are your ways of, as Sammy was saying about headaches or fatigue because of the mask? So solutions to that in a minute, and I know Steve is going to talk in a second. There was another thing you said, Phil. What was that? Oh, I had something to say. Oh, I'll have to leave it. I've forgotten. Oh, it felt really important as well. The value for money, that's it. I have a colleague who passed her ADI, and she completed her ADI license when she was 21, and this was a little while ago. She's a lovely woman, and she was telling me that the price of lessons always used to be the same-ish as the driving test per hour. Oh, Keith, you remember that? Oh, good. Imagine if we were charging £62 per hour.
We should be.
We should be, and I do have an opinion from her about why the price war started to happen, but I shan't go into that. But that would be an interesting thing. But that's what it always used to be, and we've got Keith backing that information up. Steve, and then Keith.
Just what you were saying there, oddly enough, if you read the Intelligent Instructor, they're saying they reckon there's a shortage of driving instructors coming. So instead of a flooded market, you might be able to put your prices up after all if there's going to be a shortage. Going back, and also what Phil said as well, I think I used to have a bad habit of leaving basically enough time to travel between lessons and a quick toilet break. That was basically what my day consisted of. Now, the minimum, depending on how far away they are, the minimum is an hour, 45 minutes, which gives me time, like somebody else was saying, because I find a lot of the students, I'm starting to adjust to wearing a mask for 2 hours or an hour and a half solid. They struggle sometimes, so I even say, look, if you do, let's stop, get out, stand outside, have 5 minutes. I'm not taking that 5 minutes off you. We'll just finish, we'll do an extra 5 minutes at the end, because I've got that space to play around with now. Whereas before, I'd have been like, no, can't do that because it's going to make me late. Then that's going to make me late. Then that's going to make me even later. So I think it is, like you say, everyone started with a bit of a blank sheet and just looked at things a bit more sensibly. But just to, before I go, which I am going to have to in a minute, I will just say the other massive thing about me getting a life was a divorce. That worked amazingly well. And on that note, I will see you all soon.
Thanks for coming.
No worries. Sorry, I can't stay. Take care, guys. I'll see you next time, yeah?
Thanks. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Get a divorce. There's a way to balance your life. And everything he said. So that was one of the tips. I've heard that some people are getting headaches and things. I think the suggestion is, what would you suggest, guys? I'm not back in the car yet, so I can't. Keith, you're going to talk anyway. And then Ian, were you going to say something? Go on then.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the masks. You want to know about the masks?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I just had a test yesterday, and the young girl wore glasses, and what she found helped her was when she put the mask on, it was the blue type with the bit of with the metal, was a little bit of tape over the top there, and then the glasses on.
And it secures it so they weren't fogging up.
Mm-hmm. And when she did have a little bit of fogging, she quickly identified via a few questioning skills that the air conditioning is a good anti-fog device as well.
Oh, nice.
And also, can I just go on about one other little thing about Venturi effects? Have you heard of a Venturi effect, anybody?
I think you're going to explain it.
So what happens is, it's when you have a full flow and then you go to a restricted flow back to full. So with the windows, if you had them just open that much, it creates air to draw in and push out. So you're creating a Venturi effect. So each side has the same amount of air. That's plumbing.
Ah, isn't it interesting what your previous careers can bring to driver training? Well done. Thanks, Ian. Love you. Keith, I love you too, but Ian's.
I'm just. Oh, sorry. I put my prices up since I started back from the COVID. I've had no moans at all. They're quite happy, so I'm quite happy with that. With regards to masks and all that, I tend to get out the car more often, have more breaks, and they don't sit down. We're sitting there talking. I've got two little deck chairs. We can sit there and have a little talk, or we can just stand there talking at a distance, and it goes down quite well. And then we get back in the car and carry on with what the lesson we were talking about.
Where's your car keys?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be long. Yeah. Thanks, Keith, little people. Ian, did you have something else to add? Got you, Sammy. I'll come to you in a sec.
It's just about prices, because obviously I'm with franchise with Red at the moment. So I'm governed by when they send me customers. However, I am self-employed, so I can turn my diary off, which I do, because everything comes to me now via recommendation. And when people say to me how much is the lesson, I tell them that Red price is £32 per hour. So I will do £32 per hour, but after December it will go up to £37.50 an hour. And the reason is, my question to them is, do you want your child to pass the test or drive safe for life? If you want them to pass the test, I suggest you go to someone cheaper, because that's not how I train.
Yeah.
And that's that. And I'm having no problems. Everybody's paying their prices, and we're doing the hours, and they're learning and doing their thing. So, and value for money.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Ian. I would like to point out that other franchises are available. We're pretty good at keeping an even keel at the moment. We don't seem to upset the barrel too much, apart from when Terry drops a word clanger. But no, we seem to be doing really well. Thanks, Ian. You're quite right. And it's value. It's value. And it's looking after.
That's no disrespect to Red.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
No,
I've had no
it's
problem.
to anybody.
They've been absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. Every single franchise is as good as each individual ADI that's in the car, and that's it. Every single franchise is to do with the ADI that is delivering that session. I think it was you, Sammy, next, was it?
It was. It's more of a closing questiony type thing, really. But I want to ask people to just consider what makes them happy, what makes them proud, and what makes them different, and then focus on what they want.
Nice.
To get a life.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I think it is. It's just refocusing. What you do want, what you don't want. Kev's got a billion tips for how people can do that. Absolute billion of them. Absolutely.
All I would add to Sammy is put a date on it as well. When do you want it?
That's a good one. Yeah, really good one. Was there someone else? Terry, did you put your hand up an hour ago?
An hour ago?
Yeah.
Possibly, but I can't remember that far back.
No.
I was watching the cricket. I mean, I was paying full attention to what you were saying, Fiona.
Oh, is that what you're gonna? Has anyone got anything else to add? Work life. Why don't you get a life? I think that's it.
I think to go with Kev's sleep, you've got to have plenty of exercise as well. Keeps the mind fresh.
Yeah. Bridges of London, I've heard, are a good way to get some exercise.
Yeah, there's plenty of bridges around London, yeah.
There are loads of ways to get exercise and make it fun. It doesn't have to be the gym. It doesn't have to be in anything. Yeah, you're right. And it is. I like team sports myself. I don't play any, but I realised with the time off that we've had and when we could start socialising a little bit more, I've realised I really miss that sort of doing things with people. So if that's about it, guys, I'd like to get Kev to do his usual summary. If you do have anything else to say, just interrupt, Kev. Go on, Kev.
It's looking good. It's looking good. So why don't you get a life? How do we get the control back? Discipline, saying yes and no, or choice. Try and get some people have their business running them rather than they're running their business. I think as Terry said, something along those lines. I might have got the word slightly wrong round there, but I'm sure I'll be told otherwise later. But also a lot of people are suffering burnout, or were suffering burnout before, and then they had the break and they're feeling a little bit better now and gone back to what they normally do. But become self-aware of those feelings, you know, become self-aware of how you know what you're doing. Phil mentioned he's in control of his diary now, and what he does is he puts things in the diary that he wants to do, and then the work goes in as well. So, you know, he's in control of that. Saying no is quite hard, but it's one of the things that you can help to stay in control. I mentioned sleep. I'm really good at it, so it's quite good to have that on there. Mindfulness and meditation, and again, you know, Sammy's, you know, very spiritual there, and she started to realise how we are using those little techniques that we can use just to bring us back to what we want. And Terry posed the question, are we being lazy if we're getting a life? And I mentioned, you know, charge more, work less hours, but it was all about motivation. What do you actually want? If you want loads of money, well, you're going to have to work loads of hours, or work less hours but charge more. But some people just want to earn the same money but work less, which is fine as well. And it sounds like Keith's doing that at the moment, so that's really good. Steve mentioned there was too many hours and not enough time between lessons, so he used to do that. So he's got the gap between lessons bigger now, so it gives him a rest, and especially with wearing the mask, so he's not feeling so tired. Prices, put the prices up. Someone mentioned, I think it was Steve again, about there being a shortage of driving instructors shortly. So, you know, we're going to be charging more. And Neil, Ian's also mentioned about putting his prices up from December, and he's got no complaints, so that's good. Sammy mentioned recognise what you need to make, what does make you happy. So again, just thinking about what does make you happy, what do you want? Neil mentioned his exercise and his walking. Again, you know, it's another one of those forms of sleep, exercise, work, and, you know, the relaxation side of things that we need to do. And it was mentioned earlier on, but surround yourself with good people. And what I mean by that is surround yourself with people you can trust, people that you feel comfortable with and are not going to be always thinking negative. Think of the positives and you're always going to be on the right track.
I agree. So if it is that person who's going to get frustrated with you because you're not, it was a really good summary, but it is, isn't it? Just take a step back. Will that one person that you're turning down or doesn't want to pay it, will that one person make a difference to you this time next year? Not really. There are, you know, that's their choice, isn't it? And I think we get too het up in the moment of trying to please everybody. Or is that just me? Just, you know, don't need to.
A people pleaser.
Yes.
There's a saying, isn't they? This time next year we'll be millionaires.
There is a saying about.
Or still in lockdown, one of the two.
You can still become a millionaire, Phil.
Yeah. I really liked what Ian was saying about having the windows open to create the vortex and the, you know, Venturi effect. Yes, Venturi.
I would have put it in, but I couldn't spell it.
Yeah, no. It's really vital. I think that could be the reason people are suffering so much. They're not actually getting the oxygen levels back. So out of the car, mask off, and do some of Sammy's breathing exercises. Brilliant. I really appreciate you guys being here. Just a final apology for this one not going out live on Facebook. Technical problems mean sometimes we just can't make it happen. So apologies for that. The next one, no idea. Does anyone know when our next Why Don't You is? I think it's this time next week. This time next week. Who's got the date? I haven't written anything down. I'm sorry. I'm on holiday.
13th, probably.
14th, isn't it? It's the 7th day, isn't it?
6th today,
No,
Phil.
it's the 6th
Today.
day. Yeah. So it'll be the 13th, yeah.
13th, 6:30. Ian's got something to say.
It's quick. I just want to quickly add. So obviously with the other why don't we pull up more? I think one of them was why don't we stop more often or something, wasn't it?
Yes.
Obviously with this lovely weather, it's the chance to take the mask off and play with Fiona's board and cars at the side of the road in the bonnet.
14th is Thursday. Lee's just said, she's just posted a message there for us.
13th of August.
It's the Thursday, whatever the Thursday is of next week. Oh, Lee, don't tell me things.
Yeah, Thursday the 13th, yeah.
Right, Thursday the 13th. What a load of rubbish. What a load of rubbish at the end of the webinar. I hope you weren't hanging on the last little bit. Just vital information. All you've had is loads of rubbish. Thank you very much, everybody who's been here, panelists, and thank you very much to the attendees that are also attending. Click on, watch all the other ones, give us some feedback. If you've got any subjects you want us to cover next week on the next Why Don't You, please just let us know. Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching. Why don't you have a great week?
I am.